In this class, Paris Noir, Black American Women in the City of Lights, we have been able to explore the perspectives and lived experiences of countless African American women during their transformative journey in Paris, France. Given the limited depictions and silent erasures of their existence in historical archives, I wanted to focus on one of the most influential Black women in Paris and the performing arts, Josephine Baker. Uniquely, I wanted to highlight the physical presence of Josephine Baker as captured in different artistic representations such as photography, dance, and music, in order to understand how she navigated through her racial and sexual identities. Moreover, this research project will analyze the elements of Josephine's representations and evaluate how it speaks to the white male gaze and desire in comparison to her own individual creativity. Through primary sources and literary publications, I want to critically deconstruct the hypersexualized representations of Josephine Baker and how it has constructed the public persona of who she is to France and the world. Before we discuss who Josephine Baker was, it is important to understand how she came to be. Josephine Baker was born Frida Josephine McDonald in St. Louis, Missouri on June 3, 1906, and was raised by a single mother. Having experienced the racial atrocities in the St. Louis riots as a child, she embraced her creative interests by pursuing her artistic talents through dancing and musical performance. It was also at this time, at a young age of 16 years old, she was married to a man whose last name was Baker, and from even after the divorce, she took his name and created her own, Josephine Baker. In 1922, she finally earned a chorus role in the traveling production of Noble Sissle and U.B. Blake's musical Shuffle Along, one of the first all-black musicals on Broadway. She performed across New York, her unique charismatic combination of dance and humor sending her into the spotlight. Despite being celebrated on American stages, she wasn't treated with the same dignity and social dynamics, given the intense racial discrimination, and couldn't sit in the same crowd that would watch her perform. Soon after, it is why she decided to move to Paris after being offered a chance to perform in Paris in La Revue Negre. Paris, the City of Lights, became a key destination for African Americans who sought a more liberal and racially integrated environment and greater intellectual and cultural freedom. At the time, Parisians were enamored and enthralled by jazz, the Harlem Renaissance, and African culture. Their fascination, plus Baker's obvious talent, made her a star. Baker became one of the most photographed women in entertainment, and by the late 1920s, was the highest paid entertainer in Europe. At the renowned Théâtre des Champs-Élysées, she joined in a revue of black performers called La Revue Negre. There she performed what became known as her danse sauvage, a spirited dance then considered seductive and erotic. Through this artistic dance performance, Baker is becoming the physical personification of colonial fantasy. She is subverting the subject/object position of the white male observer and the black-dominated woman, and inverting the binaries of self and other, slave and colonizer, and primitive and civilized. Baker used her control over her body to counterbalance the discourse of power that had made the black female body the object of sexual exploitation and colonization in the times of slavery. The black dancing feminine body became synonymous with exoticism, primitivism, savagery, and otherness that captivated the male-dominant look. She redefined the black body as a site of ridicule, resistance, and empowerment in relation to white male supremacy. Baker also incorporated her pet cheetah named Chiquita into her performance at times, which blends the erotic beauty of nature and animalistic seduction. These two next photos were taken in 1927 by photographer Lucien Wallery at the Folies Bergère production Un Vent de Folie. Lucien Wallery was a Polish photographer known for nude and erotic photography that featured portraits of famous cabaret dancers from the city's music halls. At an initial glance, Baker is striking a playful pose with finger guns on a curved body placed at the center of the frame in a bronze light, synonymous with her nickname as Bronze Venus. Only her private parts are covered, with countless pearl necklaces upon her chest and glamorized pieces of bejeweled bananas around her waist. She manipulated all these banana phalluses hanging from her skirt at her own wish, gaining female power through this phallic potency usually attributed to men. Similarly, this representation on stage of male sexuality on a female black body gave Baker aesthetic power. Baker knew how to use her dance in the first stages of her career to produce a new cultural and social identity for black women, meeting the demands of the metropolis at the time. Josephine was also photographed by George Hoyningen-Huna, the chief photographer for the French edition of Vogue during the late 1920s. He is historically remembered as a pioneer in fashion photography and captured this picture of Josephine Baker in 1929 in a statuette's nude pose as the Black Venus. She clutches a lustrous veil that cascades around her feet, with a serious stare as the shadows of black and white battle in the mystical sensuality of the picture. His photograph of a statuette's nude Baker became a classic erotic image and contrasted with the depiction of the savage dancer. His use of pastiche gives greater authority to the expression of idealized beauty encoded in the image. During the 1930s, Josephine transforms her public persona into becoming a renowned film actress and musician, showcasing a new era of clothed elegance. J'ai deux amours, which translates to I Have Two Loves, was performed by Josephine Baker in the 1930s. Despite the song being entirely in French, the song was first performed in the Casino de Paris. The song describes her two lovers, her country in the USA, and Paris, yet metaphorically notes the audience to a male figure as noted by him in the lyrics, again supporting her artistic performance of catering to a male audience.
Au-delà des mers, là-bas sur le ciel clair, il existe une cité au séjour enchanté. Et sur les grands arbres noirs, chaque soir, vers elle s'en va tout mon espoir. J'ai deux amours, mon pays et Paris, pareil toujours, mon cœur est ravi, ma savane est belle, mais à quoi bon le nier, ce qui m'ensorcelle, c'est Paris, Paris tout entier.
Baker's ability to manipulate the fantasies attached to black femininity allowed her agency, and her body was an instrument of pleasure and profit in the cultural and economic marketplace. She merchandised the fetishistic gaze of otherness as a way of restoring subjectivity to black women by controlling the male gaze to her own benefit. Across these artistic representations, Baker was presented with a mixture of elegance, beauty, eroticism, primitivism, and modernism that can be read in her body of performance, which situated Baker in the middle of culture and nature, between Europe and Africa, as an example of hybridity, blurring the boundaries between white and black.